In today's video, I'm going to show you the hypocrisy and lack of understanding that Shawn Baker has by breaking apart a recent study that he cites for the promotion of animal proteins in the diet. I will also show how it is abundantly clear that the diet he is following is causing osteoarthritis in his hands. You are not going to want to miss this. Roll the titles.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before I jump into the video, just a quick reminder as always that I'm now offering the SIBO, organic acid, stool tests and consult via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track. And on that bombshell, to the video. So there are a number of important steps for evaluating scientific papers. So before I start pulling apart Shawn Baker's ridiculous claims on some of the science he is citing in his videos, let me just clarify for you some of the most important steps for evaluating scientific papers. So keep these in the back of your mind when we are going through Shawn's study. So there are many degrees for assessing scientific papers, but at the most fundamental level, the following applies. So read the study yourself, don't rely on abstracts and titles, and acquire all the necessary background knowledge to the study in question. You also want to make sure that the paper that you are citing is published in a legitimate journal. Next up, and one of the most important steps for assessing the paper, is that you assess the author's relevant expertise. So do they have a lot of experience in that field, or are they writing about a subject that they have little experience in? Next up, you want to see whether a journal's impact factor matches the paper's scientific claims. An impact factor is essentially a measure of how cited a journal is. So in other words, does that journal have any weight behind it? The last couple of basic fundamental steps for assessing a scientific paper are: was that study designed, conducted and analysed correctly? Also, is the paper consistent with all of the other evidence available in the literature? Now, like I said, there are many other important metrics for assessing scientific papers, but from these steps that I've covered off, these are the basic level of assessment that should be used. So applying these metrics, let's see how Shawn Baker's scientific claims stack up. So a few days ago on July the 16th, Shawn cited this study titled "Animal Protein Reduces Risk of Functional Impairment and Strength Loss in Older Adults." So let's see what he had to say.
More interesting data coming in every day. Another study about animal protein being superior. Another 2020 study showing when it comes to function and preserving strength and function in people that are older, over age 50, animal protein is clearly more effective and better associated with better preservation of function. So
let's just quickly assess the study that he flashed up on screen there. So number one, has Shawn read the paper from start to finish? No, and I will explain why in a second. Number two, has he relied on titles and abstracts to support his claims? Yes, and I will explain why in a minute. Number three, has he acquired all the necessary background to that study? Absolutely not. So to understand the necessary background knowledge, you need to carry out a full literature review of all of the evidence available. This is a process that will usually take 6 to 12 months, and he has clearly not done this. All he has done is waved a study on screen and said, "See, I told you so." Number four, is this study published in a legitimate journal? So this study Shawn is citing was published in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition. This journal has an impact factor of 6.36. So impact factors go from 1+ to 10+. So with an impact factor of 6.36, it is an average journal, not particularly bad and not particularly good. Number five, do the authors of the study have relevant expertise? So categorically, it is fair to say that none of these authors are considered experts on dietary proteins. So the lead author of this paper is Mengyi Huan. They got their PhD in 2017 and they have just a handful of studies under their belt, with just 2 relating to dietary proteins. Bradley ML, for example, so within PubMed they have 29 studies associated to them, and just 3 of these were around the subject of protein in the diet. Not really an authority on protein, are they, Shawn? Another example, Jabed Mustafa, they have 37 studies in PubMed associated to them, with just 2 studies relating to dietary protein. Martha R. Singer, they have 47 studies associated to them in PubMed, and just 6 of these are associated with studies around dietary protein. And finally, Lynn L. Moore. So they have 125 studies associated to them in PubMed, with just 6 studies they have been involved in regarding dietary proteins. So I think we can fairly say that none of the people who wrote that study that Shawn is citing are remotely experts within the area of dietary proteins. Those authors have written about everything from H. pylori to long-term yogurt consumption. So you could say that they are a jack of all trades but a master of none. Well, certainly not a master of dietary proteins anyway. Number 6 is impact factor, and as I said just now, the journal the article was published in has an average impact factor. So enough said there, it's not setting the academic world on fire. Number 7 is the study designed, conducted and analysed correctly. So the study method used was the Framingham Offspring study. And the authors selected 1,896 participants for an average of 14 years. The hilarity of Shawn Baker is highlighted here in that the study used was 2 sets of 3-day diet records, so essentially food diaries. And since Shawn has been on social media, he has blasted food diaries as being a joke, and this is what he has previously said.
You know, epidemiology is about 80% of our nutritional knowledge comes from epidemiology, and usually, for the most part, you can't infer any type of causation from it. There are all kinds of potential confounders. Lots of biases are at play, including recall. But when you hand people a food frequency survey, how many blueberries you eat in the last 6 months? I mean, nobody knows this stuff, right?
And finally, number 8, is the paper consistent with other studies? Again, absolutely not. The vast majority of evidence in the scientific literature, from epidemiology, clinical trials and everything in between, points to limiting or avoiding animal proteins. And this is why most health organisations around the world have a stance reflecting this. Now, this is simply one of the most recent studies that Shawn Baker has cited in his videos. You can go through each and every one of his videos where he makes ridiculous claims and pull apart the ridiculous science that he uses as easily as I've done here. Lastly, I want to touch quickly upon something that I have recently noticed regarding his hands. Now, Shawn is no newbie to poor test results. We have all seen his testosterone and glucose management problems. But we don't need test results for his next health assessment. We can visually see the physical degradation. So osteoarthritis is the most common form of arthritis, and it occurs when the protective cartilage that cushions the end of your bones wears down. So here you can see an elderly person's hands, and you can see the deformity and degradation of the joints. And this is Shawn Baker's hands as of a week ago or so. So you can see the joints are enlarged and deformed, and his hands look like the hands of an elderly person. Now, before some of you say that doesn't prove anything, Goji Man, he might just have the genetics to determine this. Well, this is his hands just 2 years ago. No swelling of the joints, just little sausage fingers. Anyhow, that's the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, remember to look after your body because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.